Hey everyone, Dana Jenkins here. I'm a team manager with Jamberry. I am going to talk with you today about follow-up and using the time that you have to be organized and intentional with what you're doing for your business. But I also wanted to tell you just a little bit about my jam story and hopefully give you some hope if you're feeling just stuck with where you're at. So to kind of reverse and go back 3 years ago in May of 2014, that is when I joined as a consultant. I had success early on with recruiting and building a team. I became a team manager within 4 months, and then 2 months after that, I double promoted to executive, and that was probably the highlight, kind of like the pinnacle of my time as a consultant. So hitting executive was amazing, and it's been my goal to get back there. So I held that rank for 9 months, I think, and then lost that, and honestly handled that pretty well. It was, not something that I could control, and so I had the right thought about it that, I'm just going to keep working my business and I'm going to get back there. And so it has been my big goal to get back there. And in the midst of all that, we just have real life happening. And so I'm just going to share a little bit about my story with you guys. We had become foster parents right before I joined as a consultant. So literally the entire time I've been doing this, life's been crazy. And maybe some of you guys can relate to that, just with different things you have going on in your life. So I kind of just inside laugh a little when I'm sharing the opportunity with people and they're just talking about how they're just too busy, because I am super busy and I just know that I find the time to do what I need to do. And sometimes I just don't have the time to do everything, and that is okay. And so right now, currently, we have 5 children. So at the time when I joined, we had two boys, and we were foster parents. And I won't go through all of that, but in the midst of joining, we did take a very difficult placement that literally turned our home upside down. It was a very hard time. It was a very dark time. Jamberry was a bright spot for me. I had something that I was successful at that was allowing me to meet new friends that were supportive and praying for me, and just really gave me something to look forward to doing, even if it was just 15 minutes after the kids went to bed or 15 minutes at nap time. I literally needed it, and I didn't even know that that's what it was going to provide. So I was excited about the opportunity that it was going to be for my family. My why at the time was to help my husband be able to leave his job as a firefighter and to start his business full time. And that totally happened. In 2015, my husband was able to use the money that I'd saved from my executive paychecks to fund his startup costs of his business. So now he's been running his own business full time, and he is home more. When I first started, he was gone sometimes for 48 or 72 hours at a time as a firefighter. So it's been a real big blessing on our family to have Daddy home more. The other thing with being foster parents, 2015 was, I was able to go to a conference for the first time. It was in Texas. It was amazing. I was able to go to the executive dinner that they had, and it was just a highlight for me. And in the midst of all of that, we had said yes to a little baby girl who was a preemie. We actually were able to go to the hospital while she was still in the NICU and spend 2 weeks with her before she came home with us. But if you think about how things usually work, usually when you bring a baby home, you have some mourning, right? So all of a sudden, life became, we have this little baby that we're caring for who actually has more needs than a normal newborn would be. And so I had to put Jamberry a little bit more on the back burner to take her to all of her appointments and make that the priority. And we were totally fine with that. But somewhere in there, I did start to lose, I guess, just my focus, because I was becoming focused not on what I could do, but I was looking at other people. And so comparison is really the thief of joy. So I would compare myself to somebody who had joined at the same time, and I was watching them maybe promote past executive and continue to climb. And here I felt like I'd lost my rank and I wanted to get back there quickly and I hadn't. But you sometimes have to just be realistic about where you are and what your circumstances are. And so we have the little baby. 2 months later, we said yes to her 2-year-old sister. I guess she wasn't even quite 2 at the time. So suddenly we have 2 little ones, plus our boys. And then in the midst of that, that is when God blessed us with a surprise pregnancy of our own. So it was a overwhelming time. It was a joyful time, but it was also scary. It was scary to know that in 2016, I was going to have a baby and we were going to have the 2 little girls still. And how was I going to do this? And so Jamberry was a good distraction in ways, but I will be honest that a year ago in May of 2016, when my youngest daughter was born, it was a very hard time for me. I underestimated what I could handle. And so I had put a lot in place to kind of keep my team going and keep parties going. But when you have that many little ones that close together, and one of ours, our little girl, Carly, that had been the preemie, she has special needs. And so when Karis was born, Carly wasn't even walking yet. She had a lot of delays. And so when I say comparing yourself to other people, I made the mistake of maybe looking at somebody else who had just had a baby and look how great they're doing. And it literally was so hard to have all the kids and the newborn, and my husband was working his business and wasn't able to help me a lot. I didn't even get active in May of 2016. And I was really hard on myself. I did not give myself grace. I kind of just really kind of hit rock bottom with just feeling like I was a failure. I couldn't do it all. And it's good to know that you can't do it all, but you can't stay in this place of just self-pity. So anyway, I just kind of was going through the motions and I wasn't really feeling passionate about my business. I was feeling like I had just failed. And so I had to meet the needs of my little ones and my family, and absolutely was the right thing to be doing, to put my family first. But it really took a mental change for me to kind of get back to a place where I was able to use the pockets of time that I had to be productive. And so what happened for me was using the comparison for good. So instead of looking at what somebody else has that I don't have, I was able to maybe identify some people who are good at something that I need to get better at. And so one of those things was VIP group. I last fall had a VIP group that was super small. I felt like, oh my goodness, I've been doing this for like 2.5 years and I have like 50 people in my group, right? So I reached out to people who had done trainings about VIP groups or who I just knew did a good job at that. And I asked them questions. I asked if I could join their VIP group. And so before I went to regionals, that was one thing I had started doing. And that really helped me. The Jamily that we have just as consultants, I do not think it is common in other direct selling companies to have such a family atmosphere where people are so willing to share with each other. I have so many people that I am thankful for who really helped me to boost my business, to get new ideas, and to get excited again. And so I will be honest that regionals is about a year ago. I think it was October, and I went to St. Louis with somebody that was on my team. Kara, she really encouraged me to go. I'll be honest, I didn't want to go. I didn't want to take a baby with me. I felt like it was going to be a lot of work to take her with me. I didn't know if I was going to be able to focus to, having a baby with me. It was going to be my thought process about the whole thing was mostly negative, but I ended up going, and it was the best thing that I could do for my business. So I just encourage you to go to Summit, go to area meetings. If there's something that is Jamberry related that you can get to, I encourage you to go, because I went, you guys, and the new relationships that were put in my path have greatly blessed my business, and the trainings that were provided, same thing. It just lit this fire back under me. It brought me back to a place that was very similar to when I first joined. That excitement was just back. And I went to it and I had like no bookings and I left and I was excited and I started working. I started asking and I got bookings, and I remember specifically being excited that I booked a fundraiser. So fast forward to today, you guys, we have Color Cure. Oh my goodness, it's amazing. If you don't have it yet, you need to get it and get excited about it and get it on, ladies. There are a lot of wonderful trainings out there. I'm sure your team manager can connect you with resources, but there's so much to be excited about. Had we had that a year ago, that would have been what I was excited about. But literally a year ago, it was just getting excited and doing online parties again. And sometimes you need to change up what you're doing. So that's another thing. If you are bored with what you are doing, you need to research maybe some other things to try. And I have found for myself that I have to keep things mixed up and I have to be excited myself, or that really comes through with my customers and with people that I'm having parties with. So anyway, off my soapbox about that. Regionals was a time of rebuilding for me. So I had this mental shift that happened for me, that instead of focusing on what I could not do, and so that negative thinking for me was that I had 5 kids. I was homeschooling, my oldest still, trying to do preschool with my second oldest, have the 3 little girls, lots of doctor's appointments, just feeling like I did not have a lot of time to work my business. Instead of focusing on what I couldn't control, I started focusing on what I could do. And one thing that I could do was just do one thing. So even if you just do one thing today, even if you just have 15 minutes and it's following up with customers, do it. Even if it's just spending time contacting 10 people to ask for a referral, bookings, see if they want to try a sample. Do something for your business productive every day. And so that's what I started doing. And I noticed that my thinking changed, that I suddenly started seeing more opportunities in front of me because I wasn't focusing on what was negative and what I couldn't do. And it's really interesting. I think I told you that I compared myself to other people, especially after Karis was born, how other people were able to do X, Y, and Z for their business. And I talked with a leader friend recently, actually, and she was one of the ones who'd also had a baby. And I talked with her and she said, Dana, you have 5 children. I only have 3. And she said, my husband was home for like 6 weeks after my daughter was born. And that's why I was able to do blah, 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 blah. And so like, that was good to have that honest conversation with her and realize I had put all these expectations on myself that shouldn't be there, just by comparing myself to somebody else who wasn't in the same position as me. And so sometimes that does nothing but hurt yourself to do that. And so I think that is a huge reason why I was able to get out of that funk, was to suddenly look at maybe somebody who was in a different position, or maybe somebody who was doing better at something, but instead of using it to feel sorry for myself, I used it to get better. And I used it to reach out to them and ask, hey, how are you so successful at this? Or do you have any tips for me? And so networking and reaching out to other people was something that I did that really, really helped me about a year ago, 9 months ago. And one of those changes was in my VIP group. My VIP group now is over 200 people, and it's been grown organically, which means that they're all people that want to be there. They're people that have been invited to be there because they either ordered or they've attended a party, and I always give an open invitation, but I also always reach out to everybody that has ordered and I invite them to my VIP group. Now, one thing, Heather Newsom actually asked me to do a training on my follow-up system specifically, and like how I organize my things. And so one thing I wanted to mention was that Amy Smith has an amazing YouTube training on follow-up, and I have followed that almost entirely. I've put a few little spins that are my own on it, but I don't want to go back into explaining all that because she does a great job explaining what she does in all her follow-up mailings, okay? So like, this is my initial thank you, and I have these pre-stuffed. And if you are interested in what to maybe put in initial thank you and what to put in a 2-week or 2-month follow-up mailings, look for Amy's video on YouTube, and that will get you started. Let me see if I'm missing anything here. Okay, so I'm going to talk about what I do and how I've made it for myself that I do this. And I have seen a huge increase in my repeat sales. I've seen a huge increase in people who buy and then stay connected to me, where before I had always done a thank you, like an initial thank you. But after that, they might not have heard from me. I didn't do a good job following up with people. And so that's been a big change that I've made here in the last 6 to 9 months. So what I do is I have all my envelopes pre-stuffed, and I do that about once a month. So anytime you do anything like that, if you do a mass quantity of samples, hostess packets, your follow-up mail, you're always saving time because you have all the materials out and you just do a whole bunch of them. So I will stuff like initial thank yous. I'll maybe do like 20 at a time. Same thing with my other mailings. So right now I have 7 of these. I've had 7 orders in the last week. And so I have these ready to go. And so what I will do is I will just log into orders and I will copy and paste the address. And I have this system, it's called a Dymo printer. And I can do a little training about that separately, but I don't have it out here at the table with me. But basically, it will print labels for you. And so I will print 3 labels with the person's name and address. Sorry, I'm not trying to show her name and address on here, but I will take one of them off, okay? And I will put it on here. So here it is. And then I have 2 left, and I make a pile with these other 2. So I'll take care of all my initial thank yous. Even though I have a printed thing, I still write a little note on the back. And I try to just say something that recognizes that I actually know what they ordered. So let's say they bought the new color cure, and I just say something like, thank you so much for your order. Seaweed Shore is such a beautiful choice. You're gonna love it. Thank you, Dana. So that's what I do. These will go out. Then I get out my 2-month and my 2-week follow-ups. So the pink ones are my 2-week. These other smaller purple ones are my 2-month. And so at this point, I have a whole stack of these. And I just bam, bam, put the labels on, and they are good to go. It has saved me so much time. Before, I was writing addresses 3 times, which still was better than trying to do it a different way. So I do recommend writing them out 3 at a time if you can. But this printer cost me $99, and it has been well worth it. It also prints out stamps. So I can print out a whole string of these, and then my son can even put stamps on here for me, my oldest. But I can knock out my follow-up mailing really quickly doing that, and then I organize it in this basket by date of when it needs to go out. Okay, so these actually should have gone out Monday, but Grace, you know what, we had a crazy week, and so those can go out now. This will be next week's. These need to go out. And it goes all the way back to, I have stuff that's ready to go out in October, the 2-month follow-ups. So I just sort them based on, I look at when the order went out and when I think they got it. And then I mark it to go out 2 weeks after that, and then 2 months after that. And I always do it for Mondays and just try to take care of that at the beginning of the week. So yeah, that's been really helpful for me. I have noticed quite an increase, like I said, in repeat orders, and it really has been key in just connecting with customers, because that's not all I do. I also use that, like this stack right here that I said I need to get out. I will be able to use this to connect with this person, and it's like a reminder to me that I'm going to touch base with all these people, make sure that they received their initial order, make sure they have my application video, and then make sure that I've invited them to my VIP group. So I'm not asking them at this point to do anything. I'm just trying to cultivate a relationship with them. And I've learned different ways to kind of, I guess, just get to know people and make myself more personable to them. Like once they know that you're a mom and you have children and you're busy too, like you usually can find something to connect people with. So I'm trying to think of somebody recently. I have a hostess recently who is a teacher. And so that was a connection point for us. I was able to talk to her about what grade I used to teach. And so I've just really made it a point to connect with people intentionally and like in a real way. Like I really do want to connect with people, not just because I want to get sales, but because I do care about my customers. And my VIP page has really turned into just a fun place. I have ladies sharing their Jammy Cures all the time, which I love. And I can't even necessarily take credit for this. I just have such a great group of ladies in there, and they genuinely know who I am as a person because I do live videos all the time. And I have to share that my personality is not, you probably can tell I'm a little quieter. I don't have this outgoing, gregarious personality necessarily, but I'm me. and I'm not going to be somebody else or try to act like somebody else. And I think it took me almost 2 years of doing this to realize that is okay. Like, I can think of some amazing ladies that do this, and I love watching them, and I wish I was like them, but I'm not, and that's okay. So on my VIP page, they've gotten to know who I am, and that is by me doing application videos, doing fun games and challenges, and just getting comfortable hitting the go live button. Same thing on my team page. And so that has really boosted my confidence by just doing it, even though I was terrified. So I want to say it's been about 9 months of doing that. And I remember the first few times I did it being petrified. And I have been so encouraged to see new ladies on our team just doing it like right away. And so if I would encourage you to do anything, it would be to let your customers put a face with the person that they are purchasing from. Go live on your VIP page. And if you don't have a VIP page, it's not too late to set one up. Remember, I said that at 2.5 years into it, I only had 50 people because I hadn't done a good job of inviting people or being intentional about following up with customers. So those are 2 tips that I have for you. Trying to think if there was anything else that I was going to share. I think that that's mostly it. Just remember to not compare yourself to others. Oh, Heather wanted me to share just what I do currently and how I've been successful with that. So I do a lot of online parties, and that was one of those things that I just had to realize that's where I was at. I have not had the availability to maybe get out a ton and do a lot of in-person events, although now that I'm not nursing throughout the day, I am able to do that a little more. We have some childcare help, and my older boys are actually going to be going to school next year instead of me homeschooling, which will free me up a little bit. We have a lot of doctor's appointments still for my other little girl, so getting out a ton is not an option. And so instead of that being, something negative, it's like, you know what, that's okay. I can do a lot of online parties. So this is what March had looked like. I highlight, I don't know if you can see, all this is highlighted. This is Mondays and Tuesdays, and then Thursdays were highlighted here. And then this was, I got to go to the Leadership Academy at the end of March, which was amazing. And let me tell you my change in my thinking. So regionals, I didn't want to necessarily go because I had a baby. When I got the opportunity to go to the March Leadership Academy, nothing was going to stop me. I was just determined that I'm going. And Karis is coming with me because I'm still nursing. She was 10 months old. And you know what? It was wonderful. But I had to be thinking that way. I had to be thinking that this is going to work, and I'm going to travel with a baby by myself, and we're going to do it, and it's going to be awesome. And you know what it was? And I met so many amazing ladies and have so many new friends now because of that. But had I been thinking negatively about it, I probably would have talked myself out of going, and I wouldn't have reached just the enormous benefits from that opportunity. So anyway, looking at my calendar, I highlight what evenings work for me to do an online party. And then I do not limit myself to just one party. If more than one person want to do it on that night, you can either try and do more than one at once, or I highly suggest doing something with like a block style party or a party with more than one hostess, and you can call it whatever you want. But I have started doing that recently, and I just make a little video that I send to my hostesses and just explain to them, hey, it's going to be you, and there's going to be maybe 1 or 2 other hostesses. And the reason this is going to be great is because there's going to be more interaction, there's going to be more fun, and I'm going to have a fun little competition for you guys to compete to earn some extra exclusives from me. So I make it fun because I know that I'm not the only one that's competitive. So I haven't had anyone who's had a problem with doing that. And I actually, it makes me more productive to be able to do it all at once like that. So I routinely am having about 10 to 12 online parties at a time. Now, that does not mean that I don't have dead parties. I absolutely still have parties that don't go well. You can hostess coach, but you can't make your hostess do what you're asking her to do. So it's our job to share with her, but it's completely normal to have parties that flop. So if you're only doing 1 or 2 parties a month and those are flopping, it doesn't mean that the next one won't be successful. You just have to have the numbers, and then you will see, if you look at your numbers, that, you know what, 70% of these that book end up having it. And then out of those 7 out of the 10, maybe 5 of those end up being qualifying parties. And maybe out of those, 3 are just super amazing parties that connect you with a lot of people. But the more parties that you have, the more bookings that you have, the more sales that you're going to have. And if you're looking to grow a team and promote in this business, bookings are your key to meeting new people and recruiting. So I would just encourage you to get good at booking and filling your calendar. And one way to do that is to talk with your spouse or your family about what are good nights for you to be busy doing parties. And then use some of the software that's out there like Tiny Torch or Cinch Share, not to check out, but to make you more productive. So I sometimes will do like an online, not an online, a live portion for my party where we'll kick off, let's say like at 9 o'clock, and I've programmed my posts. But then I'm there on the page commenting with people and interacting with them. And so when they comment on something, I'm commenting right there with them and I'm interacting. It doesn't mean that I schedule my posts and then I just don't do anything. That's not going to work for you. And then going live also in your events, that's been key for me as well. And so maybe I will go live even though I just applied this in a party. Next week, I will probably remove and show them how to remove color cure and how to apply it. And then to get more bang for my buck or my time, I also did a clear wrap on top. So just get smart about using your time. So you might not have a lot of time, but you can make the most of it. And so I have had 2,000 or more in sales the last 4 or 5 months. Heather has asked me to share this and just share like that I'm busy, but what I'm doing. And so what I'm doing is I'm just doing a really good job taking care of my customers. And I have a really good VIP group right now. I'm doing Club 12. If you don't know what Club 12 is, you can ask your team manager. There are some wonderful trainings that some ladies in Heather's downline have actually done on Club 12. I have 2 groups right now. I know some ladies who have 5 groups. Style Box is amazing. Talk about Style Box in your parties. Talk about Style Box in your VIP group. Unbox Style Box. I actually have one right here because I recently went live and I unboxed it. So things like that that can be repeat business for you. Club 12 and Style Box have been huge for me to start my month off with a lot of PRV to begin with, and then just having a lot of parties. And I know that seems really basic and obvious, but I do a lot of parties, and I am actually at a place where I am just as excited as when I first joined 3 years ago. I think some of that has to do with color cure, and some of it has to do with it's just easier to be excited when things are going well. So if things are not going super well for you, just know that I've been there and other people have been there too, and you can get unstuck. And one suggestion is just to get yourself to Summit, get yourself talking to other people who are successful at something, and just talk with them and ask if you can check out an online party. Ask if you can check out their VIP group. People are wanting to help. Most people want to help. So I hope that you have found this encouraging in some way, and I haven't been rambling too much, but like I said, my follow-up system is based off of Amy Smith's, but my little printer has been a lifesaver for me, and having all my stuff prepped has been a lifesaver, and then sorting it. So let me know if I can do anything else to help. Bye, guys.